Hello everyone, welcome back to this channel. In this video, we are going to talk about configuring role-based authorization with client-side Blazor. In our previous video, we have discussed authentication with client-side Blazor using Web API and ASP.NET Core identity. We've also talked about authentication with client-side Blazor using individual account as an authentication type. This video we are going to continue on authentication, because for your application to work, first of all you must have an authentication. Now when the user is being authenticated, then you can now authorize the user. So before we dive into this, let's actually understand what authentication and what authorization is, and what are the differences between authentication and authorization. So first of all, when we say authentication, what is authentication? Authentication is the process of determining if someone is who they claim or who he or she claims to be. This can be done in many different ways, but the most common way the applications we use is the username and password. Now in many applications we need your username and password to log in. It could be your email and password as your username, or your preferred username as well. If you go to ATM, you can see that as soon as you slot your card, you have to pass in your PIN. So this is an authentication. So saying or proving that that account is yours by providing the credential that you use to register, to log in. That is authentication. So every application, if you want to make it secured, you must have an authentication mechanism to protect your application. Now if the user is authenticated, what next? That is what comes in the authorization. If so, then what is authorization? Authorization simply means the process of checking if someone has the right to access a resource. So if I'm authenticated, I want to view an essential information. Do I have the right to view, or it is meant for only administrators? Is it meant for only users? Is it meant for both administrator and user? Do you have any third party like super user managers who can access that? That is what it's called as authorization. So in the previous video we talked about how to create authentication. I'll link the description, I'll link the video link in the description. So if you don't know how to do it, you can just go in there and watch that video and to create the authentication. But in this video too, you're going to create the same thing as well, but here you're going to speed things up. Then we start working with that authorization. Authorization occurs when or after an identity has been established through the authentication and determines what part of the system you can have access to. So example is, if you have an administrative right on a system, you can view or you can access everything, but a normal or a standard user can't have that right or can't access all the things that you administrator you can have access to. That is what you know as authorization. So I believe by now you've gotten the idea between authentication and authorization. So let's start. We start by creating authentication first, then we move on to the authorization. So if we check the page that I have created a new Blazor Web Assembly page or application, and it is a default one, as you can see, nothing much, default ones, and that is what you see here. If you don't know how to create Blazor web application, then launch a Visual Studio and now click on File, click on New Project, wait for the interface to load, then we choose Blazor Web Assembly, click on Next. As I record this video, the current version of .NET Framework is 7.0. That is what you're going to use. Give it a name, solution name, choose the location that you want to store the project files, click on Next. Here you need to choose the framework, that's 7.0, that's the standard version as I record this. we have 5, 6, and 7, but we use 7. And now here we're going to use ASP.NET Core hosted. So check this and check configure for HTTPS. ASP.NET Core hosted going to add 3 projects: the client, the API as a server, and a class library as a shared project. So that's what you're going to use. Click on create to get it created. When it is done, click on this button or this button to run the application, and you must have what I have here. If you're able to do it, well done. Now, in order to start with authentication, let's say we have to first install some NuGet packages. So let's go to application, and now let's close this. So click on Solution Explorer. So you can see we have these 3 projects, and these are the shared, server, and the client. Client is the client version. Server is going to develop or what's going to provide the source resources to the client, and mostly it is what the API. A shared is a class library, C# class library. That is where all classes or models that you want to share between server and client, you put them here. So when you have a class whereby you want that class to be used by both, put them under the shared project. Now let's first work on the server project first. So open the server project. Now right click on dependencies, and now click on manage NuGet packages. We're going to add some packages in order for this application to work. So the first thing that you have to add is ASP.NET Core Authentication.jwt bearer. So let's say I have installed them already. I think so. So you have to install them over here. So click on the browse tab, and if you haven't installed them, try to install them. So the first one that you need here is Microsoft.ASP.NET Core Authentication.jwt bearer. That is what you need. The next one is you need Microsoft.ASP.NET Core Identity.UI. So you need these 2. Then you need Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Diagnostic.NT-Framework Core. Okay, so you have to install these packages. When you're done, you have to install Identity.NT-Framework Core. So Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Identity.NT-Framework Core. You have to also install this. So when you're done, we have all these mechanisms that you can use. The next thing that you have to do here is we need a database to save the user information. So let's install Microsoft.ASP.NET ASP Core or Microsoft.NT-Framework Core.SQL Server. So install this. Install Microsoft.NT-Framework Core.Tools. So install these 2 and also add it up. Now we need this. So with this, when we get to that, I'll explain what you have to use this for. But for now, let's maintain this. We install that later on. Okay, so let's leave this. Alright, so if I'm done installing this, I'll need 6 packages or 7. Good job. So you are done with that, and we can now move forward. Now, what is the next thing to do? The next thing to do here, it is to create our database connection string. Go to Solution Explorer. Now in the same project, server project, app settings.json, we have to set up a connection string over here. I have it here, so I'm going to check if I have it. I'll copy that. So connection string, we just paste it here. So make sure you type the same thing, connection string, and now the name that we are given is default connection. This is dynamic, so you can change it. Now the server is local, so we are using localhost. Database name is JWT demo. Let me add row base. So this is our table name. Now trusted connection is equal to true. And now when using .NET 7.0, you have to trust server certificate. So add this as well. Bring your comma. Now save that. So we are done with creating a connection string. We can now close it. The next thing to do here is to set up our identity database. That is the application DB context. So this class is going to have a database table created and tables as well. So in order to do that, let's create a folder. Let's add a folder to the project and name it as data. So add new folder, and the name of that folder that you want to name as data. So with this data, let's add a class, and the name of this class is going to be application DB contest. So let's add a class. We name the class as application DB contest. So application DB contest. So let's add it. Now let's check if I have the application DB contest that is over here. So I'm going to copy all these and let me just paste this here. Okay, so this is what we need. Now if I decide to take off this application DB contest file here, this class here, it has inherit from identity DB contest. Now with this control plus period, that is dot, and it is demanding of Microsoft.as Netcode-Identity framework. That is what we installed. So use that. Aside from that, you can see we have another one, and that is DB contest option. So control plus period, and here you need to use Microsoft.as framework core to get this work. Now we are going to create modules. So with these modules, that is what we have to do first. You want to finish setting up the authentication before we come back to the role base. So let's clear off this. So let's clear this off as well. Okay, so now we have our connection set, and we are inheriting from identity DB contest. Now the next thing that we can do here is we have to set up the identity database by registering the services. So how do you register these services? We can do that in the program.ts file. So let's close this. Now go to Solution Explorer, and our program.ts file, we are going to register the services for this identity database that we have inherited. Okay, so let's add a service, and the first thing that we can actually do here is we can add this. Let's register our database connection first. So let's copy this, and in here to register database connection, we are going to use builder.services.addDB contest. So that's the module name that we created. This is the connection name from the app settings.json. So we are done this registration. Now let's register the identity contest as well, and doing so we have to add the following. So let's see if we have to add this first, and that's going to be builder.services.add default identity, and it is what for identity user, add identity framework store, and we pass in a model. Okay, so this is what we need to add. Now when we are done, we have to perform database migration, okay, to create a database and related tables for us. So let's save this, and now let's go to Tools, NuGet Packages Manager, and then click on Package Manager console. Now let's add migration here. So to add migration, we have to add dash migration. So dash O, that is the output. And now this output, we need a data folder that we created. The file name should be migration. Now let's click on enter, and let's wait for the migration to be done. So we didn't add a name, so let's put the name as initials. So that is the name of our migration as initials. So let's say name is required. So let's do it again. And now instead of add migration, we pass in initials. That's the name. The name here, you can change it to anyone that you want. So it's going to build it, and you're going to create our migration file known as initials. So let's wait. So you can see it is done now, and let's update database. So update the database. So it's going to run the queries by the entity framework core. So let's wait and see. So while it's building it, you can click on this SQL Server Object Explorer. Let's refresh this, and now let's open the last one. That's our server database, and now the name that we use is JWT demo and row base. So that is it, and you can see we have the various tables in here. So these are the tables that we have from the identity DB context. So let's wait while it gets refreshed to see the list of tables that has been created for us. Alright, so now that we have a migration performed, the next thing that we can do here is we can enable authentication services. So how do you enable these services? Let's go to the same program.cs file in here, and in this we need to add the authentication services, and we have to add the bearer service as well. So let's see how to add that. So we can add that by using this code up. So let's give space. So we are using beta.services that add authentication, okay, and here we need JWT bearer default. So control plus period, and now let's use Microsoft ASP.NET Core.authentication.jwt bearer. So add that. Okay, so let's say control plus period, and we need to use tokens as well. Now with encoding we need to use system.test. So let's use this. Now all this we are going to get, these are the keys that you're going to get from the appsetting.json file. So we're going to set these keys over there, and the JWT security key as well. Okay, so these are the things that you're going to add them there. Okay, so let's save this, and now let's add these keys. So let's close this. Now let's open appsetting.json, and now in there we need to add these keys. So let's see if you can have you can see these keys here. So let's copy this, and in here you can put them after the connection string. So we have a security key, random key must not be shared. So this key here, we can actually, it's supposed to be more or equal to 16 characters. So you can change this key over there, but it should be more than 16 characters. Okay, and now we have our issuer and the audience. And now there is the expire date that you want a token to get expired. You can decide to make it as 4, 5, any days that you want, but for now you maintain 1. Okay, so let's save this, and now let's close that. So the next thing that we can do here is also simple. We have to enable the authentication middleware pipeline. How do you do that? You can also do that in the same program.cs file, and in such case we need to add these 2 lines of code. So program.cs file, we need to add this app.use authentication, then app.use authorization. So let's pass them here. So authentication first before authorization. So take note, this is the first one and this is the second one. So save that and we are good to go. Okay, so now once you're done with this, we are done with that configuration. Now what we need to do here is we have to create our controller, and now we need to create an account or register controller. Okay, so let's create a register controller. Now open the controllers folder, right click, and now let's add new controller. And now this controller, the name is going to be register. So select API controller empty one, and the name of this controller is going to be registers or register controller. So register controller. So this register controller, we have to create a constructor and inject some services. So how do you create constructor? Click on this control plus period. Now you can see we can generate what constructor here, but I have mine here, so I just have to just go in there and just grab them. So do I have account controller here? So first of all, this is what I need to do. I have to create a constructor and I'll pass in these services. So as you can see, user manager, and here we have to create this a constructor. So let me copy this and paste this here. Okay, So we inject the service here, and now we can actually create initialize it in between this constructor for it to work. Okay, so once you are done, let's create our registration. So in case I want to register, what are the necessary steps that I need to go through to register? That is the next thing that we are going to do, and that is what we've done. So here we are saying it is a task of I action result, and here it returns nothing. It is post from the body, and here even post we can just set as register as well. Okay, so there is register, and now we need a register model, and we create an object out of this. Now this model is the one coming from the user. Now we create a new identity using the email and the person's email as well. We create a new user using the password. If results is succeeded, then we return this register results as successfully was registered. That's successfully what was true. But in case there's error in it, then we can return this the user. Success is equal to false, and we can select the description and send as what errors. So this means that we have to now create a register model and a register result model. Let's copy this register model, and now let's create that. So as for that one, since you're going to use it in the controller and also going to use the same model in the client, it is appropriate to put it under the shared project. So right click on the shared project, let's add a folder, and let's organize it as what? Models. Now with these models, let's add a class, and the name is register model. So that's the name of the class, register model. So we can set here as public. Now in this, what are the things that we need to do, or what are the things that we need to use to register? Let's say if I have that register model over here. So do I have register model, result model? Yeah. So these are the things that we need to use to register. So let's copy this, and in here I'm going to paste this here. Now all these fields are required. As you can see, we need email, we need password, we need confirm password. So just email and password and confirm password. And now here, these are the using the attribute that we want to set against, and we use that from component model.data annotation. So here you want to check if @ symbol is there. This is the display name, and this is what it is required. So it means you can't skip this. The same thing applies to this, and data type is password. As you can see from here, the strength length is 100, that's the maximum. Minimum is 6. So it's supposed to be within from 6 up to 100. And now you have password, and here it's supposed to be, we are going to compare this confirm password with this original password. If they're not equal, then you're going to pop up this message. Okay, this is a display name, and that is the data type. So once you're done, let's save this. Now with this Ctrl+period, you can remove all unnecessary users because we don't need them. We want our work to be simple, so we can just close them like this. Now once you're done, let's close this, and now we need a register result. So let's copy this, and now let's go to our models, right click, let's add the same class, and now it's going to be register result. Now this register result, what are the things that we need? It's over here. We need only 2, and this is going to be boolean and what, and a list of errors. So we can just, so this is going to hold the successful of our application process, and it's going to hold the error in it. Okay, that's very simple. So let's save that. Now once you're done creating Ctrl+period, you can remove all unnecessary users. Yeah, save it. Now let's close it. So let's import them here. So Ctrl+period, and using .models. So we are off now. You're done with this. Now the next thing that we can do here is let's install a Swashbuckle, the package that I talked about earlier on, so we can view it in that is a Swagger UI. So go to Solution Explorer, and under dependencies, right click, and then click on Manage NuGet packages. So I have installed this already, so you have to install it through the Browse tab. And now this is what you need to install: swashbuckle.asp netcore. So this is what you need to install. Okay, so get it and install it. when you are done, let's go there and register this service. So to register this service, the first thing that we need to do is quite simple. Let's see over here. So we need to add these two. So add Swagger Gen. Let's add this. So Solution Explorer, now program.cs file, and in here we can add the next line, add services.add Swagger Gen. Now when you are done, you can go down there and now add the middleware pipeline. So as you can see from here, we need to add app.swagger use swagger and app.use swagger UI, the user interface. So under the middleware pipeline here, where you have the app.use, you can just paste these two here and we are good to go. Okay, so now once you're done with this, we can just test our application and see if we can register user into that account. So let's save this and now let's go to our page. Let's wait for it to get refreshed. You can just click on this button to get it refreshed here. And now we're going to navigate to the Swagger, because currently for the client section we have nothing here unless the default one as we created the project. But we're going to navigate to the Swagger UI, where it's going to load the API that we have created. And now we have created an API action method known as register. So we can copy this and open a new tab. And now let's paste this here. So instead of the fetch data, this is going to be Swagger. So pass in the Swagger and let's wait for the UI to load. So this is Swagger UI. Now see, we have api.register. So let's try to register here. Now if I pass in just this, click on what? Execute, and I see the error that we have. Password must have at least one alphabet character, must have one digit and uppercase, right? So it means you can't just use this to register. So it says, let's see, so user at 1, 2. Now they have everything, but just that they are not up to 6. Let's see. So execute this. Let's see the response that you get. Okay, so now it's saying user registration is successful. Let's see. So it is 1, 2, 3. So it's almost 6. Okay, so user at 1, 2, user at 1. So that's our registration. Now let's go to our page and see whether we have that. So we can close this application, this program, and our SQL Server object. Let's right click on ASP.NET user and click on view data, and let's see whether the registration that we made has been captured. Yes, of course. So user at email, you can see it's over here, and that is our password hash. Okay, so the password that we sent, it has now been encrypted into a hash, and we have it stored over here with our as you can see, with our security stamp, concurrency stamp, and etc. Okay, so it means our registration controller is actually working perfectly. Now let's talk about the login. So how do you create the login? So let's close that. Let's go to Solution Explorer, and now we need to create another controller known as login. So right click on controller, add new controller, and now it's going to be an API, and empty one of course, and it's going to be login as well. So login controller. Now with this login controller, we have to also create a constructor out of this and inject some services. So in doing so, we can use what I have here. So login controller, and now this the services that you want to use. Let's copy this, and in here we can paste them here. So we're using iConfiguration and we're using sign in manager. Okay, we inject them and we have initialized them here. Okay, so once you are done, the next thing that we can do here is, if the user wants to sign in, what should happen? It's going to be a post request, and so we copy this method to log the user in. So we paste it here, and now there's a post request that we are setting, and it requires a login model from the user, where it's going to provide username and password. When we come, we store it over here, and we check if the password is in order. Now if it is not, then we return this to the user and password do not match or they are invalid. And if everything is okay, then we create a claim. We store the claims as the email over here. Then we create a key, credential, and expiry date. Now this expiry date is the one that we get from the appsetting.json. Remember that we set the date as 1. You can set to many that you want, or you can actually add minutes or time. If you click on this add dot, so now dot add, you can see we have days, hours, milliseconds, micro, months, years, and etc. But we are adding days. We're adding days here. And now here we encrypt this security key using the HMAC SHA 256, using this algorithm to encrypt that. Okay, so we have key, credentials, and expiry date. Now this key is what we have stored in the appsetting.json file. Now once we are done, we now generate the token using the key and using the claims, expiry date, and the credential. Then if it works, we return success, put it through, and we return the token through the login result. So here we have to create two models, login model and login result. So let's copy this and let's go to Solution Explorer. Now in our models, right click and add new one, new class, and the name is going to be login model. So with this login model, we need few things in here. Let's say if I have that login model available here, so we can just copy it straight away. So login model, we need this too. So username and password. Let's copy this, and in here we can use public. So public class login model, and you want to use username and password. Okay, so you use email and password. Data type is password, and here is required as what? Email. Let's save that. Then we can now close this. We need to also create login result. So let's copy this and Solution Explorer. Now you can right click on the models and also add a new class. The name is going to be login results, and now with this login result, we need to use only these 3 properties here. So let me copy this here. So this properties here is going to handle everything. So if it is success, it's going to be handled. When there's error, it's going to be handled. After creating everything, return the token, it's going to be handled here. So let's save this, and now let's close that. And now in here, control plus period, let's import the models here to have this work. Okay, so now we are done now. Now let's close this, and now let's run application and see if registration is going to work here. You see, it's quite simple. That is the authentication that we are creating. So let's wait while it gets refreshed, or even here, let's refresh ourselves. So you see that it is loading here. So we wait while it gets loaded. Alright, so there's error here. Let's check out where the error is. Now it is, oh okay, so we have to take off 1. We have double. So save that, run that again, and let's see. Yeah, so I think everything is in order, and we have to, wow, so it is reloading. Okay, so we have registration. Now we have to apply this. So try this out, and now the username is the same, but with the password we set user at 12. Now let's execute it and see if we're going to return the token. So we wait while it gets loaded. Alright, so you can see we have our token here, and this is our token. Error equal now and successful equals true. So this is our token. So it means our controller, we are done with the authentication. Now let's go ahead and work with the client, okay, to view this or integrate this into the client section. Okay, so once you have this, the next step that we can actually do, let's close this. The next thing that we can actually do here is also quite simple. We have to initialize the authentication state, and that is the cascaded authentication state, and we can do that in the app.razor file. So Solution Explorer, Now we can now close the server and open the client, and close the server as well, open the client one. And in here you can see we have app.razor. So in this, that's where you're going to work in. Now I have it over here, so let's say if app.razor, okay, so let's use this. You can use this. Alright, so let's use this. And now in here, let's go there and now make a copy. So let's paste this here, and now let's comment this. Okay, so we are using a cascading authentication state. Okay, so this is going to check if the user is authenticated. If not, then it's going to redirect the user to the normal page where the user is supposed to be. So this is require a user to be authenticated first. Now let's save this. So once you're done with this, we can now run the application and see. So let's run this application and see what we have now. Okay, so let's see. Now we have an error here. Right click and go to inspect elements, and now let's see what we have now. So under console, now you can see it is saying that there is no registered service of the type. Good, so there's no registered service. We do that later on. So let's continue on with what we are doing. Now the next thing that we can actually do here is also quite simple. Now we need to create a custom authentication state provider. So custom authentication state provider. So we can do that by creating a folder in here. So let's add a folder to the client, and let's name it as custom authentication state provider. So here we can just name this as utility. So this utility, so utility here, and now this utility, let's create a class and name it as custom authentication state provider, and that is it. So custom authentication state provider. So custom authentication state provider class.cs. Okay, so in this, what are the things that we can actually work with? So first of all, let's create a constructor and inject some services in it. Now this is a constructor that we need to create, and that's going to be a custom. So copy this and let's paste this here. Okay, now once you have this custom authentication state provider, we need to install Blazor, that's it, Blazor local storage, because you're going to access the client Blazor local storage. So let's install that first before we forget it. So we need to install two things here. Okay, now let's see what you need to install in addition to this. Now this has to inherit from authentication state provider. So let's make this inherit as well. So this is supposed to inherit from authentication state provider. And now with this, we need to install Microsoft.asp.netcore.component.authorization in order to enable this. Okay, so go to Solution Explorer. Now dependencies folder in the client section, right click and now click on manage NuGet packages. Now with this manage NuGet packages, under the installed one, I have installed them already, so you need to install them here. You have to install Blazor.localstorage by Crescenting. Second part here you need to install is you need to install Microsoft.asp.netcore.component.authorization. That is what we can use the authentication state provider. So install these two packages. Good. So once you are done, we inject these services and we create a constructor that should initialize them over here. Okay, so initialize them in the constructor created out of this custom authentication services. Now this service here contains another service, another method known as get authentication state async. Now this get the unit or the state of the user. Is it registered? If not, what is the writing to, well, where should it direct it? If it's registered, where should it go? So that is the authentication state provider, and it gets it from, if you right click on this and go to definitions, you're going to see get authentication state async, and that is this one. So get authentication state async, this is going to describe the current user, the state of the current user. Okay, so we need to override that. Now let's close this. So in order to override that, what are the few things that we need to do first? Now let's see. So we can override that by using this method. So let's copy this, and in here, as soon as you see override, it means you're overwriting it, and we get authentication state async. So we first get the token from the client local storage. We check if it's equal to null, then we return as a new user. But if not, then we set it as a default request header. The type is bearer, and we add a token there. Aside from that, we pass the token into this method that we're going to create, okay, to convert it, and the type here is known as JWT. So let's move ahead, and the next thing that we can do here is we can map this user authenticated. When everything is in order, we can map this. So we pass in the person's email, and now we check it over here, and we have a authentication state provider authenticated. Okay, then we notify the user, or notify the state provider that something has happened. So it's going to reload the application and going to get the correct user that we want. So that is the code that we're going to use for that. Now the next thing that we need to provide is also, let's say, that's the mark user as logout. When the user is being logged out, what should happen? If I log out my account, what should happen? We want to set create anonymous user, and we want to notify the application. Okay, we set anonymous user and notify the application. The last one here is the method that we are going to pass through, and the method here is by Mark Sanderson, and he created this method, and that's what we use to convert or break down the token, because the token is in 3 sections, and this method is what we're going to use to break this token down, get the claims, and that's the claim and the identity as well. So in here we can paste this method here, and that's where it starts from. So we get the claims from the token. We check if the row of the token starts with this. If it starts with this, meaning we have multiple rows, then we want to look through them and add each. But if it doesn't start with this, it means it's just one row, like an admin, a user, manager, etc. But in case it has admin and user, and it's going to start with this because it's going to be 2. Then we look through them and add them over here. And this is going to be passed 64 without padding, and it's going to return the token into by checking this equal signs, because we have 2 and 1, and it depends on each. Some has 2, others has 1. So it's going to check if it has the 2, it's going to add that. If it has the 1, it's going to add that. Then we're going to return this from the base 64 string. Okay, so this is what this method is going to do, and how it's going to work up to get what we want. All right, so now we have this. What is the next stage, or what is the next thing to do? Now we have everything set in our customer authentication state provider. Now what you have to do here is we have to create our services to render this service to the client, and also get a service from the client to the database or the application as well. So let's save this, and now let's close this. And now in here we have to create a folder, and that's going to be a service folder. So right click on the project, that's for client, add new folder, and now you're going to name it as service. So service. Now this service, let's create iService and its interface. So that's going to be an interface over here. So click on interface, and the name is going to be iService. So iAuthService. Now this iAuthService, what are the things that we're going to perform in this iAuthService? So we need this method. So there are only 3. That is for login, registration, and logout. Okay, so user can log in, can register, and can log out. And here we are using the same module that we created, but this time around we put it inside the shared project, so we can still use it in this client section as well. Now once we have this, we have to create our implementation class. So let's close this, and services, add class, and this class is going to be authService. Now this authService, this is what we're going to do. First, it's going to inherit from the iAuthService to render the method stated in there. So it has to inherit from this. Now while it is done, we want to create a constructor and inject these services: HTTP client service, local storage service. So we need these services: local storage and authentication state provider, okay, and native client as well. So we inject them here and we initialize them in this constructor. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is also quite simple. First of all, we need to register. So how do you register? We can register by using this post as async. So post as async, we pass it to the API, not account. By this time, it's going to be account.register. We pass in this register model. We check if status code is not equal to true, then return error occurred. Else, we can return account created successfully. That is for creation. Okay. Now the next thing that we need to do is we can specify for login. So in case the user want to log in, what should happen? So we can use this to log in. Let's paste this here. Now this is login model. Now we first realize the login. We post it to post as async to the API login API. Aside from that, we store the results here. We serialize it over here and read the response as string. If everything is not success, we return login results. But in case everything is okay, then we set the local storage. We set it as what? Auth token. We pass in the login token that we have at hand. Now this custom authentication state. Now this custom control plus period. Let's add utility folder. Okay, and now we set the current username as what? The login email. Okay, then the type that we want to pass it to the request header, and the type is bearer, and this is the token. We return login result. That is quite simple. Now in case the user wants to log out and click on the logout button, what should happen? Now you want to call this service. So this is the service that you want to call. When the logout button is clicked, we remove the local storage. Okay, so remove this over there and we set it to a new user. We set the default request header as now. So we can just copy this, customize, and we can paste it here. Okay, so now we are good to go. Now as we have this, we are almost done. What we have to do here is we have to create our registration component. So I'm going to close this, and in here, in our pages, let's create a register component. So right click, add component, and the name is going to be register component. So this register.razor. Now with this register.razor, I have this source code here for account creating, and this is going to be available as well. So if you don't know how to design your own that's a registration page, you can now go to the description. I have a GitHub link. You can just click on that to download the one that I have here if you think it is okay to you. Okay, but this is the route, and we use this services client. We need shared project, and we need what? This also services as well. We need a navigation manager. Now here we show errors when in case there's any error. Now here data annotation by data here is to display error. When the form is valid, we want to call this method, and then this is what is going to hold the data in this method. Okay, so in here we need email address. Okay, email address. We need password. We need confirm password. That's the only thing that we're going to submit. Okay, as a button type and submit. Now this register model control plus period, and we need to use this system.shared to use the register model. Okay, and here when the button is clicked, we call this method. We call the result services.register. Then we pass in this register model. Okay, now this register is found in the auth service. So when you go to auth service, you're going to see this register method there. Now if results got successful, they're going to return the user to login. But if not, they're going to return results to the user. That's very simple. So let's save this, and now let's try to log in and see in the application. Okay, let's try to log in and see. So I'm going to just click on this, and let's see if it's going to log us in. But since we haven't registered any service, it's not going to log us in yet, because we can't have access to register because we haven't enabled or we haven't registered the authentication state provider service that we created and the the services class that we have created. So let's move on, and maybe when you're done, you can now perform that. Okay, now you have the registration done successfully, and the next thing that we need to do here is we have to, or we can also create the login. So login component. So let's close this Solution Explorer, pages, right click, add Blazor component, and the name for this is going to be login. So login.razor. Now this login.razor, we need to also use the following. Do I have login over here? Yes, that is it. So I'm going to copy this as well, and as you know, it's going to be available too if you can't type all these. So we are using this the routes, and we need services here, shared folder. We need this auth service and this navigation manager. When there's error, show it. Now we have our body here as a card. Please enter your details. When everything is successfully, it's going to handle this method, or this event is going to handle that. This login mode is going to hold the data in. That's the email and password. Okay. Now you have your button to submit. Okay. Now this model control plus period. Let's add models, and now it's going to hold any error here. When that event is called, we want to call the auth service and pass in this .login and pass in this login model that we hold with the data. If everything is successfully, we return to the home. Else, we can show the results to the user. Okay, so that is quite simple. Let's close this. Now, when you go to the register model, so this is the register model. If you go to register model, now we are saying if everything is successful, you're supposed to navigate to login. So when you register and everything is done, go to login. And log into, when you log in and everything successfully, or go toward the login, that's the home page. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do here is we have to create the login component. That's the logout component rather. And let's see, I click on the page and I click on add new razor component, and this component is going to be log out. So log out. Now with this logout, this is what you're going to use, or this is what we need. So when this service or when this page has been called, this is what you want to happen. So the name is logout. When it is called, we want to call this auth service as logout. Then after calling, you want to navigate to home. It means you've logged out. In normal case, you can decide to go to login. Okay, when you are logged out, you can go back to login again. So let's save that. Now once you are done with this, what we need to do here is also simple. Let's also add a login display to display login and logout. So let's go to Solution Explorer, under pages, right click, and then go to add new razor component, and we can name this as, let's say, do you have login display? So login display dot razor. Now this login display dot razor, that is what you want to pass in there. So let's copy this, and in here you can paste it here. So we are using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.component.authorization. That is where authentication state provider is coming from. Okay. Now if you check here, we are using an authorized view. If the user has now authenticated, we want to display the username here, and we want to bring the logout. But if it is not authenticated, then we're going to display register and login. This work is going to be done by the cascading authentication state provider in the app.razor. Let's save this, and now we can now close this peacefully. Okay, now once we are done, we have few things that we need to do to make this work. We have to configure this login and logout at the main layout.razor component. So let's see, close this in a shared main layout.razor where we have this. You can actually add it over there. So login display, and that is this one. You can add that. So let's save this. We have now added the login display component. Okay, good. Now we have few things to do. Then we are done. Let's register these services to the program.cs file in the client section. So in here, program.cs file, we need to register these services. So I'm going to, the first one that you need to do here is you have to add local storage and identity core. So let's say we even have a local storage over here, and you can see we have add the authorization call. So these are the two things that we need to install, or we have to register them here. Now once you are done, we need to also use the that is the dependency injection. Now this dependency injection here means when the interface is called, it's supposed to create an instance of the implementation class. So these are the interfaces: authentication state provider. These are the inbuilt interface created already, and that's the auth service that we created. These are the interfaces. Now when these interfaces are called, it means we want to create an instance of this and send them, because this instance contains the definition for the method displayed in these interfaces. So here it's not an API, but it is rather custom authentication state provider. So control plus period, we can add the utility folder. Alright, so we are done with this. Now the next thing that we can do here is we can now log into our application peacefully. Now it's reloading. Now let's wait for the reload to be done, and all errors are gone. So you can see we have register and login. We are in the home page, right? Now that is it. If I click on login, let's see what happens. Okay, if I click on login, so there is a login page. Now there is register page. So let's see, with the login we have registered already, so we need to use user at example.com, and now the password is user at 12. Let's see what happens. So submit. Now it's going to authenticate us. Let's wait. So you can see we are logged in now. Never, and you can see we have hello username. Okay, so that's the email shown here. Now if we click on logout, let's see what happens. Now we are back to the login. When you click on login, we can just log in again or register. You can now create an account. Okay, so you see this is very simple. Now let's create another account and see. So let's create an admin. So admin at example.com, and the password here is admin at 12. Let's do the same thing, admin at 12. Let's submit, and I can see we are done. So we can now register. So we can now log in. So let's log in and see. So admin at example.com. Now admin at 12. So submit, and you can see we are in now. Okay, so we can log out, and now we can access everything else. So once we are logged like this, we are authenticated like this, that's where we are back to the authorization. Now you can see all the files, application data, or buttons that you see here, maybe some will have to be reserved for administrator, manager, and etc. And some have to also be reserved for users. In such case, how do you authorize the user to see what the user needs to see? That's the next one that we are going to talk about. So let's start with adding the authorization, and that's going to be the role base. So let's go to application here. Now this is what you're going to do in the server. So let's close this, and let's go back to, so let's close the client, and now let's open the server here. In the server program.ts file, we have to add these rows. Okay, so how do you add the rows? The rows have to be added here, and we can now pass in dot, and that's going to be add row. So add rows over here, and now these rows we have to pass in an identity row. So this is what we need. You can now, all right, so we have now added the row that we need. Okay, all right. Okay, so what do you have to do next here? So you have to create our rows in the database. So as you can see from here, we can now close this. And how do you create the rows? Let's navigate to the data folder, application DB contest, and you can do that by using the model creating method. So if I check here the, let's see, program.ts file, we can use this appdb contest. That is where it can be found. Let's see. Okay, so that is it. And in such case, we can use this. So that's what we get back to. So with the AppDB context, we can use this model creator to create the necessary rows that we want. So let's say now in here, let's paste this. Now we are using the on model creating, and we are creating to identity row. We set the name as user, normalize name as user, ID as new, get .what toString, and as you can see UID, and that's a concurrency stamp. So we are creating user and admin. So here we are creating only 2 rows, but I can create more rows if you want. Okay, so here we are creating 2 rows for this particular base. Okay, so after creating these rows, what is the next thing that we can do? We have to perform migration as well. So let's close this, and our package manager console, let's add migration. So add dash migration. Now this migration, we are saying seed rows. So we are seeding the rows here. Now let's see. So it is now seeing the rows. So let's open SQL Server object, and let's say ASP.NET rows, right click and view data. Let's see if we have the rows being saved here. So let's see. Wow, so we have no data yet. So let's perform update database, and let's see if it's going to see this. So let's see, once it finishes, we must have a user and admin data here. So let's see, let's refresh this, and you can see we have admin and user. Okay, so these are the rows. So any user who belongs to application must have either an admin section, admin row, or a user row when that person is authenticated. Good. Okay, so once you're done with this, then we have to add users to rows. So anybody who register application, we want to add that person to rows. So we are going to update the registration method a little bit. Okay, so let's go back in here, and now that is our registration. So that's account registration, and this is what you're going to use. So let's use this, and let's go in there to update the user registration. So let's close this. Let's close the seeding. Solution Explorer. Now controller, register. Now in here, after creating, this is what you want to do. You want to add this. Okay, so this first thing that we are doing here, we're going to return when there's error. Okay, but if everything is successfully done, we want to add all users to what? User row. So everyone who creates account in application is going to be user. But we check if the email of that person starts with admin, it means that person is an administrator. Then we want to add admin row to the user. So this means that admin going to have 2 rows, user row and admin row. Supposedly his email starts with admin. If so, then we return, okay, so admin going to have a user row and administrator row, right? But if you're not having an email that starts with admin, we're going to assign to only user. We can implement this further on for maybe a security purpose, because maybe I would like to start my email with admin so I can log into your computer. But this is for a practical purpose, okay? You can now have another check. If the first admin has been registered, the next admin shouldn't be allowed. Only one admin supposed to register to the system. You can do that, and that is the checkup, okay? But for now, let's maintain this, no confusion. Let's maintain this and get it way as we have it over here. Okay, now once you have added the rows to this, we have to add rows as claims to the JWT, that's the JSON Web Token as well. Okay, so let's see what I'm going to do, or what should we do to add these claims. Let's do that. So to do that, let's say our login method. So let's save this. We save this, and we can now close this. Now let's say our login method in controller. So let's see, this is our login controller. Now in here, do you have the claim? Yes, we have. So claims equal to new, then we store the claims over here as login email as what? The name. Okay, So now we have this, we want to replace it with few things here. So this is what you want to replace it with. Let's see. Now with the login, after having checking out these, okay, getting out the claims, you want to look through the claims and add them to the row. So let's see, let's copy this over here. So here, okay, let's start from this and we add up to this. So let's copy this and let's update this. So let's update this here. So first of all, we get the user from the sign-in manager or the user manager using what, the email. We get the person's row. After that, we check or we want to add a claim. So we add the claims over here, and now we find the rows. We look to the rows and add them. So if the user has administrator and user row, it's going to be 2, so you have to look through them. But if it is 1, 2, it's going to add that one. Okay, then you move on to the next ones as indicated earlier on. Okay, now once you are done with this, what are the next steps that we need to do? We have to update our authentication state, that's the customized authentication state provider method, to be able to accept what we are actually working on. Okay, so what I think that we need to do first, let's navigate to, let's close this. So let's save this and navigate to custom authentication state provider in the client section. Now in this, you can see that here we have a loop here. Is that a loop? Yeah, that's a loop. As you can see from this side, this is what we are doing. Now when we store the rows here, then we want to look through the rows. So we say that if the row starts with this, it means it is 2 or more rows. Then we have to look through them. If not, then we add a single one. Okay, so here too we have a method to add or check the row. Okay, now the next thing that we need to do is, instead of passing in the email at this side, that is the auth service. So you can see from here, mark user as authenticated. So instead of passing this email for this cascading authentication state provider, we can now pass in the token. So let's pass in the token here. So with this method, let's update it with the current one, and let's see with the customized authentication state provider. So with this, we have to update it with this. Instead of passing in the email, we rather now change it to the token, because the token contains the claims and everything. So we pass in token here, we get all the authenticated user, and we pass in this method the token to this method to just digest it for us. Okay, now we are done with that. What are the few things that we can actually do to get this work? So finally, we need to update the login method on the auth service to pass the token rather than the email when calling the mark user as authenticated. Okay, so let's see with the login method in the auth service. So let's close this and we can now save that, and that is the services. Open that and auth service. So that's the login method that we are actually talking about. Okay, so that's where you need to make some changes here. Now you see with this, we are passing in the email, but I rather want to pass in the model, not this email. So let's update that, and we can do that by using, let's find the auth service here. Auth service. Okay, so that is it, and now we can update it by using this method. So let's see, we have the login, that is the auth service, and let's see what we have. So we see we are passing in the token here, so we can actually copy all this, and let's go in and update it. So here, let's update that. So let's take off one. Let's take off one, and that's going to be response login results dot token. Okay, so the same thing applies to this and applies to that login result dot token. Now this can be now, so we pass in this exclamation mark to set this get rid of that underline. Alright, now we are almost done. So we should now have the ability to apply role-based authorization to our application. So we want to start the API, and now we have to apply role-based authorization to the API. Okay, so here, let's see, we are going to use the weather forecast as an example. So let's save this and let's apply the role-based to the API. Now this is a weather forecast. So controller, another server project. Let's see. So this is a server project, and I can see we have weather forecast. So this weather forecast, this is what we are going to do. We want to authorize this. Okay, so let's authorize this by, so this is going to be an HTTP. Let's set HTTP get. So with this get, let's pass this as an action. So as an action here. Okay, now in this is what we want to do. Let's pass the authorize attribute. And now this authorize attribute, you want to set the rows equal to admin. So now this means that only admin can have access to this application. Now let's go to our project, right click on ASP.NET users, let's open it, the data, and now let's delete them because the one that you created does not have any role base. So delete this, yes. Now delete this as well, yes. Now let's save all, and now let's my application and see what we have now. So let's run application. So let's see, we have an error here. So inspect this and let's see. So let's, the one that we have here, we're supposed to log out. Okay, and let's refresh application. All right. So now let's log in as a normal. Let's register first. So let's click on register. So let's pass the email as user@example.com. Now the password here is user@123. Password user@123. For password submit. And now let's log in. So let's wait. Good. So now let's log in. That is user@example.com, and the password is user@123. Let's log in. Alright, so we are logging in now. Now counter, you see, we can see this, but fetch data, you can see it is loading and we cannot see it, but we have an error here. So let's see, inspect this, and now let's see what we have now. So when you use control and you go to the console, you will see it is saying that we have an error here, and as you can see, component, there is an invalid start of a value, and let's see where it is coming from. So let's try to log out and let's see. So let's refresh this, and okay, so fetch data, and you can see we have loading. So this means that unless we log in before, we can have access to this, but we can still protect the whole controller first. So let's say in here, let's go to the controller, that is a server project, and controller, and under weather forecast controller, instead of passing the authorize here, you can pass this on top. So you can pass it here. So authorize. You can save this here. The root is called to admin. Okay. Now let's see. So this is reloading. So let's see, now I'm at the home. Now I'm not logged in yet. If I click on fetch data, login. So let's see, let's build application here. So let's close this. Now let's build application. Okay. Also, let's set this page. I want us to set this page. That's a counter. Let's see if we can have a counter page to display the current. Okay, so let's use this authorize page under the counter. So client section, then counter page. Let's paste this here. So you want to use authorize. So if it is a user, you want to say you are user. If it is an admin, you want to say you are user and admin as well. Okay, so let's save this. Now let's load the application. Okay, so let's see. Now you're at the home. Let's register with the admin. So admin at example.com. Then you have a password at admin at 123. Admin at 123. Submit. Now let's log in and see what we have. So admin at example, and the password is admin at 123. Let's submit. Okay, so we are in and hello admin. So click on this counter. Like we say, you are user, you are admin. Okay, so I am user here, I am admin here. Now let's log out. Let's log in with user. So user at 123. Let's log in and see. Now counter, you can see you are only user. So this is what we can do. Now when we go to, you can use this. You can use this. You copy this and you go to the navigation. Let's see. Pages shared, and you can now look for nav menu. Now with the nav menu, this is what you want to do. So there is under div, and now let's paste this here. And now with this, we can copy this over there, and here we can say manage user. That is for admin. Now with user, you can say update profile. Okay, and this for manage user, and update profile. Well, it's supposed to be user, and that's going to be, let's paste this. Let's copy this and we paste this in here. So you can Control plus K and Control plus D, K and D. Okay, so here is manage or update profile. So update profile, that's for user, and admin is manage user. Let's save that and let's see. So this is going to reload, and now we are user now, so you must see update profile here. So let's wait for the reload to be done. Okay, so we see when you log in as a user, it's saying update what? Update profile, and that's your user. Okay, so all users can update profile, can see this. But if I log out and update as, so admin if I log in as admin, so admin at 123, then let's see what I can see here. So I have to see the two, because the admin is the same user and it is the same admin. So we see manage user and update profile. So we see this is working. Yes, as soon as I log out, you can see they are off. I can't see them. I have the login. I can decide to go back to the home or to the counter, and I can see I have nothing here. As soon as I log in, I get them. Alright, so that is it for this video. I believe this is clear, and although it's taken much time, but I believe it is good as well. Yeah, there are a lot of things that you can actually change in them, okay, but basically that is the concept that we have discussed. Make sure if you want to have this source code, yeah, it's going to be available. I'll leave a link in the description, so you can just go in there, and I'm going to have the source code of this project. You can just compare with yours and see, in case you want to make some amendments and you want to make some customization too, it is possible. Thank you guys for watching. If you like what I'm doing, just give me a thumbs up by just subscribe to the channel, and also clicking the like button as well. Yeah, I'm going to catch up the next video, and we're going to talk about is it one? No, we're going to talk about an interesting topic as well, and I believe you're going to need it in your application development. Thank you.